Son, 2021, new horror movie from director Ivan Kavanagh, starring Andi Matichak from the last Halloween movie. Welcome to Maniac Movies LLC. I do updates Wednesdays and Fridays. Like, share, and subscribe. And I got some thoughts about this one.
Good night.
I love you, Mom.
David?
It's tough.
David, wake up!
Okay, so I don't do a lot of new movies. And that's because a lot of times new movies are pretty in one ear and out the other. I don't have a particularly strong opinion on them. This one I did have some thoughts on, though. Haha. So I recently wrote a review of a different movie that said that every independent horror movie released now wants to be Hereditary or The Witch. All of them. And I mean there is still the Z-grade crap of just a killer in a mask or a monster in a mine or whatever, but the higher profile independent horror movies today, they all want to be The Witch or Hereditary. And Son definitely wants to be Hereditary. You can kind of tell that by the trailer. The trailer is a pretty good representation of the first 30 minutes of this movie. And I say that because Son is a movie that takes a lot of turns, and you cannot guess where it's going from the first half hour. Like, it's a movie that takes a hard right turn at about the half hour mark, and then it's a completely different kind of movie. And I like that. I like that it pulls the rug out from under you. It's not super predictable. And I mean, if you watch a ton of movies, you'll kind of be able to say, I sort of saw it coming. But again, the first big twist is one that basically, if you predicted it, you're damn near psychic, because it's a good one. But I mean, I kind of saw it coming, but not in the way they did it anyway. So this flick is from Ivan Kavanagh. Now, Ivan Kavanagh directed The Canal, which was a fairly buzzy European independent horror movie from about 10 years ago, and I don't have a lot of memories of that movie. I know I saw it. I remember the ending. I really didn't like the ending of it. It was kind of stupid in a, well, I mean, I guess that could happen kind of way. But I remember it having a lot of atmosphere. And that's sort of my memory of that movie, is that there was a ton of atmosphere and not a lot else. He directed another movie after that, a Western starring Emile Hirsch called Never Grow Old. Also had John Cusack in it. I haven't seen it, but I know people who have, and they said it's a somber Western. There's a lot of those coming out right now. It's just one of those really quiet, sad, everybody's bummed out, it's brutally violent, whatever. And I do like some Westerns, but didn't hold my interest. This movie also stars Emile Hirsch along with Andi Matichak. Like I said, now Andi Matichak, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, is the actress who played Jamie Lee Curtis's granddaughter in the last Halloween movie. And I only saw that movie one time when it came out. I'm not the world's biggest fan of the Halloween franchise in general. I only really like the first couple of them. But I remember being fine in it. And my first thought when I heard that she was in this movie as a mother of a kid who looks to be about 10 years old is like, isn't she a little young? I mean, she is in that she's 26, but it's also made clear that she has the kid very young. And she does have one of those kind of builds and faces to where she could believably play a 19-year-old, a 29-year-old, or a 34-year-old. Like, it's honestly, she's one of those people whose age is a little hard to pin down. So it works fine, and honestly wasn't distracting in the least. She's good in this movie. And actually, after seeing this movie, I'm going to say I'm a fan of hers. I want to see more stuff with her. There's a movie that's on Netflix with her called Assimilate that I think I'm going to try and check out. But it starts her and Emile Hirsch and the kid. The kid doesn't have much of a biography behind him. He was in The Walking Dead for like an episode. He was in a couple other things. So she's we established at the beginning of the movie that she got out of a bad situation, and it doesn't tell us because that's the mystery. But she got out of a bad situation. She had this child. She had it in the front seat of a car, freaked out while running away from something. And this scene is very well acted because she has the kid in the front seat of a car. Like I said, this is brutal, blood spewing out from between her legs, screaming, "I don't want you!" And then she has the baby, and she has that moment that new parents describe, where you see the baby and it's kind of like love at first sight. Like it clicks and like, oh yeah, I'm a parent now. And this is a very well acted scene, and this is a very well shot movie, and it's a well acted movie. From a technical standpoint, this is a very solid piece of filmmaking. Cinematography, editing, score, makeup effects, all very good. Again, I like the cast of this movie. Annie Matichak, I guess this was kind of a big role for me with her, because I was like, I saw Halloween, but I was like, meh, whatever. She screamed and she ran. Who cares? But this one, she really carried this movie very well, and I guess I want to see more stuff with her. And Emile Hirsch is an actor that is generally kind of like a shoulder shrug for me. I mean, I've seen him in several things, but he usually plays kind of a twerp, like in Lone Survivor, or Alpha Dog, or what else have I seen him in? Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, yeah, or the Bonnie and Clyde miniseries. Like he's just always like he's fine. But I liked him in this movie, and of course, I think he was actually had the record at least at one point for the youngest person ever nominated for Best Actor for that movie Into the Wild, I think it was called. The thing that Sean Penn directed, and then he nuked his leading man status immediately with that god awful Speed Racer movie the Wachowskis did. And that movie, if you haven't seen it, that movie is an abomination. It is hurt your eyes bad. Anyway, he's good in this. And he plays the cop on the case. So essentially, what happens, and you see this in the trailer, is that she's a single mom. She's working. She has a ridiculously nice house. I'd like to know how the hell she's affording that house. That's kind of a pet peeve with me. I hate it when movies do that, where that you have a single mom in her late 20s working as a teacher, and she has a beautiful house. It's like, I'm struggling to pay for this shithole I live in. That just irritates me. And yeah, a lot of stuff does that. And I know that it is partly because you have more room to move the camera. It's just visually more dynamic when you have a big space and you can go upstairs and go downstairs and go in the kitchen and go in the living room and everything's not just one open area, but still, it's just, how the hell does she afford this house? Even if she's renting, how the hell does she afford this house? But whatever. So she's a single mom, teacher, living with her son. She's a good mom. She has a good relationship with her kid, and she has a neighbor friend who helps take care of the kid when she can't. Single parent, that's going to be an issue. And she's going to night schools. Looks like she really got her life together after this little hard opening we got. Again, big time jump. The kid's 10, so like we jumped ahead 10 years. So yeah, but then one night, in a very insidious, if you remember that movie, the James Wan movie, the first one, she kind of just hears something in her son's room, figures he's just screwing around. It's after bedtime. It's like, hey, buddy, it's time to go to. Holy shit! Because she walks into his room and it's full of people. And this is a good scene. And then the door slams shut. She freaks out. This is apparently a universe without cell phones. Like, I saw so few cell phones in this movie, and there were so many times when it would logically be like, dude, just use your cell phone. That like, this is as far as I could tell was set in present day. So it's just. That's one way to deal with the cell phone question in a horror movie. She just doesn't have one. I mean, there's statistically going to be at least one person in the United States that never got around to buying a cell phone. I mean, I never got an iPad. I have no intention of ever getting anything like a tablet or an iPad, so I'm probably eventually going to be like the only person that doesn't have one. And speaking of the United States, this flick, as far as I can tell, was filmed in Ireland, and it's hilarious that when a movie is filmed in not the U.S. and they want it to be the U.S., they put American flags everywhere because there's American flags all over this movie. And, I mean, for God's sake, I live in the South, and I've only seen, like, 2 American flags in the last 24 hours, one outside a grocery store and one hanging off the back of a guy's truck. But this is, like, it's just American flag, American flag. See, it's shot in America, we promise. Whatever. But, so she sees the people in her kid's room, and she flips out, understandably. Runs, tells the neighbor to call the cops, because apparently she doesn't own a cell phone. Runs back, and the kid seems fine, but his shirt is pulled off, and, there's this thing where apparently she escaped from a cult, and this is all in the trailer. There's this weird cult, and we don't really ever find out all that much about it, but it had something to do with pedophilia and Satan worship. Like, that's essentially what it is, pedophilia and Satan worship. We don't really know much else beyond that. Calls the cops. 2 cops show up, Emile Hirsch and his partner. Emile Hirsch is trying to be sensitive and understanding. Partner's like, dude, there's no crime here. We have no evidence that anything happened. Kid is fine, whatever. So it seems like a dead end. Then the kid suddenly has serious, debilitating medical problems. And this scene, like, is hard. I mean, like I said, this is very hereditary in that it focuses very heavily on, like, family drama and the sadness that would come from having to care for a very sick child. So, and drawing parallels to the Canal, I remember the Canal also had a lot to do with losing a child, so apparently that's kind of a preoccupation of this director's. But yeah, so she goes to the doctor can't help, kid seems like he's going to die, and then kind of has this miracle recovery, and then the rest of the movie happens. Like, anything past that is not in the trailer, so it would be a spoiler, but, cult, sick kid, single mom, sensitive cop friend. Technically, this is a very good movie. Pacing is solid enough. My issue with this movie, and it is a big one, because this movie is very much worth watching, if it's worth your while, and especially because it's a Shudder film, so even if you don't feel like spending the $8 to rent it on demand right now, wait 8 months and it'll be on Shudder for free if you've got Shudder. I have Shudder, but I wanted to go ahead and watch this because I couldn't think of anything else to watch tonight. And I was curious about this movie. The trailer is really good. Um, Basically, this movie's flaw, and this is a big flaw, is it doesn't have a single interesting character in it. Like I said, Emile Hirsch's character can be described as sensitive cop. Andy Matichak's character could be described as worried mother. Son's character could be described as any normal 10-year-old kid. The partner, the cop partner, like skeptic. There's no characters here, and because this is such a drama, I mean it's a horror movie, and there's absolutely hardcore gore in this flick, but this is ultimately a horror movie and a drama, and a drama needs to have characters, and I just Annie, her character felt very reactive to me. Her character only really responds to situations. She has very little personality. She loves her son. I just described her entire personality to you. She's resourceful and she loves her son. There, done. That's it. So, because of that, I wasn't as engaged with this movie as I should have been. And because once you figure out the kind of movie you're watching, you're kind of just watching things happen. I mean, this is a solid movie. This isn't a great movie. It could have been, and what it loses is characters. Like, these people just do not have enough personality. They're all very, very one note. So, it's a solid enough flick. Some good twist if you're a horror fan, or if you're even just a fan of like Hereditary, which wasn't necessarily a horror film. This isn't as much of an art film as Hereditary is. It doesn't get as odd, and it's not as long either. But yeah, it's a solid watch. It's just maybe not a run out and check it this immediately. If you have Shudder, you're gonna have the opportunity to watch it in 8 months anyway for free. Or Redbox. It might pop up on Redbox for $1, and it's certainly worth $1. I just don't know that I'd necessarily recommend someone spending 8 to watch this, especially because you'd be able to buy the damn thing on DVD for 10 in 3 months anyway. But yeah, really like the lead actor. Great, well shot. Just it didn't have characters. It didn't have any characters to engage me. So yeah. Alright, spoilers. This movie just came out, so I'm being heavy-handed on that. But alright. So this is kind of a zombie movie. The kid is he's growing sick because he needs to eat human flesh to survive. That's the big twist of the middle of the movie. And what that does is it puts you into a movie that's very similar to the Dario Argento episode of Masters of Horror, which was called Jennifer. And there have been other movies to do this, going back to like Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, aka Dead Alive, where you essentially have someone caring for a loved one that has to eat human flesh. There have been vampire movies like this as well. So it puts the mother in that difficult position of trying to find a cure for her son while keeping him alive, because when he gets the craving for human flesh, his body starts to melt. Like his skin is on fire, he starts to get these blisters, he gets sores. But if he eats, then he's perfectly fine again, like 100%. And when he's not hungry, he's just himself. He's just a normal kid. But when he's hungry, he's freaking out. He's screaming, saying, "Feed me! I'm fucking dying, you bitch! Feed me!" So the hunger kind of overtakes him. So it's fine. But again, because I didn't care for these characters enough, I didn't feel the pain of it any beyond just the natural fact that you don't like seeing a child suffer. And her performance does sell it as far as a parent having to deal with this too, but still, it just ultimately, it didn't grab me the way it needed to. And Emile Hirsch is solid as well, but he's very peripheral to this, because after the first 30 minutes, he's just trying to figure out what's going on. He's not very connected to the mother and the son. They're the ones propelling the story. So, what basically happens from there is, every so often the kid will kill and eat someone. And it's gory, like I said. I mean, he rips one woman the hell open. He rips another guy in two. It's gnarly, but the gore is also pretty well spaced out. And this whole flick is built around a twist. And it's very binary. It's a very binary twist. It's one or the other. Either she's crazy and her son's just sick and she's had a mental breakdown because of her experiences as a child being abused, or the kid actually is a zombie. And see, the thing with a twist like that is it's the flip of a coin. Either she's crazy or she's not. And the truly brilliant twist endings, Rosemary's Baby, The Sixth Sense, those ones, Psycho, they don't, you can't watch the beginning of the movie and say, okay, it's either this or it's that. Either she's crazy or the kid's actually a monster. So, because this movie just gives you, it's a flip of a coin. It's like, okay, either she's crazy or the kid's actually a monster. So you're just kind of waiting to find out. There's not really any way, more or less, to tell which one it's going to be. So, it's a good makeup effects, good acting. There's this one really sad sequence where she takes him to a fair because she wants to give him kind of one last day because she realizes that there's not much chance of him living like this. But, even that, I didn't feel it as hard as I should have because I just didn't have that kind of connection with these characters as opposed to Hereditary, where the family was very, very believable and very well thought out. So, I mean, I'm not trying to say that this movie is a failure because it's not as good as Hereditary, because Hereditary is one of the best horror movies the last couple decades. But it's just, when you're going to focus this hard on drama, you need to have the characters. You need to have personality. You need to have something you can latch onto. And just them being nice and not wanting to see them suffer isn't quite enough to keep you 100%. But yeah, overall, solid enough flick. Didn't love it, liked it. Yay! Check this one out. Alright, that's all I got. Another episode. I'm actually kind of planning a couple of bigger type things. Yeah, Friday might actually be another really long one. So, anyway, I will be back in a couple days.